All right, let's call the January, what is this, 16th? Utility Board meeting to order. We call the roll, please.
Ayala.
Here.
Berg.
Here.
Bourget.
Here.
Cranston.
Present.
Velazquez.
Here.
Thank you. This is our time to review the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to do so? And if there are any corrections or amendments, I'd like to hear them.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
I'm sorry, I actually had a question real quick. I was going through the minutes, and one of the things that I recalled from our last meeting was a discussion about disparity between the summary and the information within the financial documents. And I didn't see that noted anywhere. I may have missed it, but I didn't see that noted in the minutes. So I was just curious. That's something that in our minutes we keep track of those, and then we come back, and I was hoping to hear where those disparities had come from, make sure that we won't see those in the future in the summary. Is that something that would be appropriate to add to the minutes?
I think so.
Cool. That was my only point. Thank you.
Any other? I'm getting an echo when mine's on and Patrick's is on. Any other corrections or revisions? Okay, so as amended, will you have to publish them again next time or just add it without us revising it?
I'll just add it.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, with those, then we approve the minutes as will be corrected.
Is there a second?
Oh, right, parliamentary procedure. Is there a second? Who made the first?
I'll second.
Joe did.
Joe, okay. Patrick seconds. Any other discussion? Question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No? Say no. Motion carries. Time now for citizen participation. We have a 5-minute time limit. If you have something, please come to the mic. All right, seeing no participants, we'll go to the reading of the ARPA report, which is my duty here. For November 2023, the financial and operating statements read as followed. During the month of November, revenue from power sales was less than budget by $19,000, which is 0.9%. Total revenue was more than budget by $1,600. Cost of goods sold was over budget by 1.5%. Purchase power costs were over budget by $38,000, which is 4.8%. Transmission expenses under budget by $29,000. For the month, net revenue from operations was $298,000. For the year, the income statement, revenue was less than budget by $720,000, which is about 2.8%. Total revenues less than budget by $397,000 for the year. Interest was $320,000, which was much better than we budgeted. Cost of goods sold total for the year was less than the budget by $1.13 million, which is about 6.6%, lower than we expected. Year to date, cost of purchase power were under budget by $700,000, about 7%. Transmission expenses were under budget by $400,000. Total year to date A&G expenses under budget by $69,000, which is 1.2%. For the year, net revenue to the dollar, $3,804,255. Debt service coverage for the year was 1.4 times. Our requirements were 1.25, so we're doing very well there. ARPA paid $55.37 per megawatt hour to our solar installations for 22.4 million watt hours. These are our solar installations for all 6 cities. Sales of energy for November was right on budget and was about 2.9% less than in 2022. For the year, energy sales was 3.2% less than budget and 1.9% less than 2022. So overall, the cities were down almost 2% roughly. Peak demand, coincidental, was 37 megawatt hours. It occurred on the 27th of November at the hour ending at 9 a.m. And that was 4% less than the peak in 2022. For the year, all-in cost of power to members is 10.013 cents per kilowatt hour, which is 2.1% lower than in 2020, which was the year where ARPA reduced our power cost rates. The next scheduled meeting is the 29th of February at 10 at Otero College. Any questions? Okay, let's move to Mr. Seba, water and wastewater.
Good afternoon, thank you. Looking at water revenues at the closing of the year for December, water revenues for the month were down, but we're ending the year up slightly, and this is on just water sales. That figure does not include the $17 facility maintenance fee. So total year to date on water sales was basically 1.9 million if you round up just a little. We had budgeted 1.892. So we're showing, even though it was a wetter year, when it comes to consumptive sales for residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal accounts, we did have a little bit better revenue this year. Expenses for the month of December, they came in at $246,111. We had budgeted $373,825. We had deferred several expenses over into 2024 to try to minimize what our costs were as we were coming towards the end of the year, to ensure that we were as close to that additional internal services loan that we were taking out to ensure that it would cover whatever that final deficit would turn out to be, and it appears that we're definitely going to come in that. There are still several things that are left out that will be carried as an expense over towards this year and might be late, either through final invoicing that takes place in January. Sometimes folks, it closes out in December. We don't get their invoices until January, sometimes even as late as February. The biggest expenses, of course, are still in purification, delivery of chemicals, and a couple of issues that you just can't push over towards the next year. At the RO plant, there was all the routine maintenance that takes place, from testing batteries on the generators, inspecting our clear well to ensure its condition is still satisfactory, cleaned the intake screens on the degasifiers, and also completed our fourth quarter finished water tank inspections. We did our second round of PFAS testing on all of our wells. This testing is taken care of under one of two different PFAS grants that we currently have. One takes care of the cost of all of the testing. The second one takes care of additional work, discussions, education, and planning up to a total of $10,000. Changed all the cartridge filters on our 3 cartridge filter apparatus. Leaking valve on the on the 2-inch Chlortec line. Had a couple quad rings come loose on ROs A and B. These are the rings that are on the very end of the vessels. We assisted the wastewater treatment plant on a couple of actuators that they have. Since the RO plant has had those since their inception, I believe there's 13 or 15 of them that are inside that plant. The wastewater plant has only 2 or 3. So we're able to take that experience from one department and take it over to the other to help minimize external costs when those actuators are acting up. And as always, there's standard facility additional maintenance and meter reading that has to take place until we're able to finally get all of our manual read meters changed over to electric. On the wastewater side, revenues were $237,614. This is up for the year. We are still down overall as towards what we were budgeting for. The majority of that gap that's in there would be the transfer from retained earnings to bring us back to a zero. Total expenses for the month were $213,137 over a budgeted for the month of $318,133. Again, this was a reduction in expenses where we were taking several projects we know are going to have to get taken care of, but moving them from 23 into the 2024 fiscal year. Let me go back to water real quick. I forgot to update on distribution. They had a main leak up at Otero College on a 4-inch water service, maintained the airbase transition line with some new air vacs and took care of a couple joints. We're continually assisting the contractors at the new sheriff's office since we have a major 16-inch line that goes right through there on 2nd Street. Along with our 16-inch line, there is a bevy of fiber optics and other infrastructure that goes through that area, so they have to be real careful anytime they break into the ground. We had a couple leaking meter setters that we were on top of, and we assisted Rocky Ford with a couple of live taps, one residential and then a slightly larger 2-inch commercial tap. On wastewater, we're right in line, treating about the volume we would expect to see this year at 33.121 million gallons. Jetted a minimal amount of line. Everything's getting colder, so there's not so much the jetter truck can do without going out and probably freezing up. It generally goes out just when there's an emergency call or we have our monthlies that need to get taken care of. There was a huge plug from somebody flushing unknown things down at Wendy's. There was a lot of the flushable wipes that are supposed to disintegrate that do not. When those began to collect, they caused a backflow up into their grease trap and also into their store. So we went out to help clean that line and assist the plumbers with getting Wendy's back up, and also to ensure that our lift station that's right there by Aaron's was protected and didn't get overwhelmed and get bound up either by those wipes or by a larger, fat bird or whatever that might possibly come through. The automatic composite samplers made by ISCO, we've had a couple that have had some issues. They were damaged when the headworks flooded earlier this summer when the power went out. And we were able to repair most everything. We got one of them up and running by scavenging parts off of the second one. And the heads on, spare heads on both will be shipped up to ISCO for repair. They went out this month. Cleaned and scraped the walls of the UV channel. It's a perfect environment where there is algal growth, and snails also like to move in from time to time, so we keep them off the walls. And we finally received back a rebuilt motor for the Orbital Basin. That was out for repair since about July. And we finally have it back so we can be fully prepared. If a different motor goes down, it'll now be shelf stock. We can pull it out and replace it and send anything else with issues to get repaired. Monthly safety training, trips and falls and workplace harassment. We had to mail out some violation notices concerning compliance with the 2023 backflow testing requirements. That comes down again to businesses that have received a minimum of 3 compliance warnings or reminders. And at the end of the year, they're put on the clock for 90 days to where they have to come in compliance, which will make sure that they do before that so that the city yet is not in violation, much like happened once last year. Continuing to work on the lead and copper survey. Customers will continue to notice copies of that survey will be mailed out in their utility bill. If they have already been kind enough to fill that out and return it, they can ignore the next 1 or 2 that get mailed out. If people have not filled one out and sent it in yet, we would appreciate them doing so. We're having to drop back and adjust our plan for SRF funding due to the availability of funds. What this comes down to is the program normally is already popular, but with the added funding that comes from the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, it's really become popular, especially with principal forgiveness and the rest that was included into it. So what has occurred to everyone is, for example, we had been awarded a $300,000 development and planning grant that we would use to figure out that the plan that we have in place for pipe replacement, meter replacement, lead and copper line replacement, water tank repair, those grants were terminated. So one hand giveth, the other hand taketh away. So we no longer have that $300,000 grant. On top of that, it had been the working model where anyone who received an SRF loan would receive 50% principal forgiveness up to $5 million. They have now reduced that down to $2 million. Lead and copper is fully reimbursable up to $1 million. So you could in fact look at our current ask that we had put together, we could get $3 million principal forgiveness. But missing out on $2 million and the affordability of it, we're kind of gonna drop back, reevaluate exactly where we wanted to have work done and adjust the costs and see where that puts us. DOLA has given us a revised schedule, a tentative revised schedule of what they feel our rate adjustments might need to be to meet any one of these asks. Once we officially put together what we want that to be, they can finalize what their suggestions would be. They'd also base it on our current financials and not the financials that were done, or not the look that was done last January, because we've had at least one rate change since then. While I'm on that one, are there any questions on SRF funding or what it is we're putting together for that? It's a pretty big topic.
What does SRF stand for?
State Revolving Fund.
Thank you.
What it is basically that's where the majority of federal funds for water and wastewater projects come in. The state has a particular match for it, and then they offer low interest or no interest loans to municipal entities, and then as you pay it back, it goes back into that pot, so they're able to turn that money around and send it right back out to other entities yet again.
What's FOG, since we're asking three-letter acronyms?
It's a fat, oil, and grease.
Okay.
Generally what we look for at any restaurant or Walmart, Safeway, any place that has cooking apparatus.
Did you call it a fatberg?
We do, that's.
I find that offensive.
Well, no,
Continue.
it's one where I can actually say, hey, that's an industry term. And it's generally where you have these, you have debris, and generally they call them flushable wipes, and again, they are not, they do not work that way. But also you get a lot of different cleaning wipes, the Clorox and stuff, people get into the habit of they utilize those, they throw them in the commode and flush them down. Well, those can get hung up someplace in a line where there's, a root, a joint is a little bit off, or it just rests due to lack of flow. And anytime you get some of that fat, oil, and grease to come along, those love to grab onto it. And then it just builds on itself. And the next thing you know, you have a complete line blockage created by those items. You might recall we spoke about it earlier this year when Workforce Incorporated was in doing our clean cut and camera project for the year. They come across a fatberg that was up at the intersection of 9th and basically 9th Street between San Juan and Bellevue. And it was, 8 inches the diameter of the pipe and about 3 to 4 feet long. So that was a good one that they got to clean out, and it had a really good backup to it. Luckily on the opposite side of the street up at 10th, the flow had a different direction to go, or we would have known about it sooner, but just one of those things we always keep an outlook for.
What does that cost us?
Sir?
What does that cost us?
The clean cut and camera project?
No, to get rid of those fat birds.
With that one in particular, since it was underneath that contract, that was a $50,000 contract for them to come through and do just about 20,000 feet of line. If it's one we find when we're not under contract, then it's just our employees attacking it. If they're unable to get it out, then we'd have to bring that contractor in outside of that. And if that's the case, I would suggest between, well, it's kind of a wild swag, but $2,500 to $5,000, depending how big it is and how much infrastructure would have to be replaced. We have all of our testing needs have been put out by purchasing. This is another year where we've already surpassed what we had budgeted for due to new permit requirements by the CDPHE and also by the cost of testing going up. And Shiraw High School came through for a tour of the RO plant. It's the first time any of them had been through, and they had a great time. They learned a lot. Questions?
Should not theoretically grease producing businesses have a grease trap which would catch it? Does that mean they're not getting
They do.
pumped frequently enough or what?
Correct. We have our FOG program, which we have an employee manages. It's underneath our industrial pretreatment program, and she ensures that they're on a particular cycle to be cleaned and to inspect the condition of what a lot of these devices are. And she happens to be starting up this program at a time when a lot of devices throughout the community have reached the end of their lifespan and aren't functioning the way they're supposed to. So we've had several that have been replaced already. We have several more on the books where we are at this point encouraging the businesses to replace those devices so they work right before we have to insist that they do. And this is one way when you find that, okay, there's perhaps an issue someplace. Probably the place where this one come from was already in the process of replacing their grease trap. But then you get a lot of home discharge that we don't know about nor can we control. Yes, sir.
You had mentioned that this we've gone through 2 rounds of you said PFAS?
PFAS, yes, sir.
PFAS. What were the results? Do we have the results yet of the second testing?
We have the results of both, and we also had a round that was paid for by the state back in 2020. And so far, all of our wells do come back positive for PFAS.
In what level of severity in terms of concern?
Under what the proposed limits will be, we're above that. All drinking water that goes out from the RO plant is well below what any maximum contaminant level that the EPA has talked about. So the majority of our concern then becomes from the transference, much like selenium, much like manganese. All of our concerns is when in that concentrate waste stream that leaves the RO plant, it goes down to the wastewater plant. So it's an issue we'll still have to deal with either there or on the raw water side before it gets to the plant.
I also had one more question. You had mentioned that we had training done with a CRWA. How do we budget for training, and do we do annual training? Do we have a budget for annual training for this department?
We do. Every department has one, water, wastewater, and we try to budget between $500 to $750 per employee. I think our budget this year, it was either $10,500 or $12,500 for the department. We're continually adjusting the amount that goes in there based on the majority of the day trainings used to be free. They were covered by grants from the EPA to the Colorado Rural Water Authority. Then those grants started to go away, so then it started costing us $25, then $35 for a full day. Now we're up to $50 a day for a class that's about 4 to 5 hours long. Then you have operator schools that are really good to send folks to. We have both one water and one wastewater guy that are at a basics operator class now. And all of this training goes towards training units that maintain their current level of certification, general knowledge to operate our systems, and also to facilitate further testing so they can increase their certification levels.
That answered all my questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir?
I have a couple, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Have you tested the PFAS at the wastewater plant?
It's we just took samples in the biosolids. It's an annual report, and those results have not returned yet, but they will be there.
So I'm just curious as if the concentrations, how that compares to the raw water.
Once we get those results back, we'll be able to do that. Yes, sir.
Why is the depreciation not showing up on the cost?
I'd have to ask that to the finance director.
It's on wastewater too, so.
Yeah, both water and wastewater have blanks.
Yeah, I'd have to see what her specific reasoning on that would be. I could take a few guesses, but I don't want to put anything out that might be incorrect.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anything else? Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you are. You're the city manager too.
You can go from there if you want, right?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, got a mic. You know, before I get into the report, last time we talked about the expenditure report and the summaries. Like on the depreciation for the wastewater, it's in the financial, it's just omitted on the summary. We're working on that. I'd asked her to make sure that those things matched. And so if there's things that you want to see different, you need to tell me what those are. And I'll get them, I'll get her to change those. Like on the electric, the balance sheet here. Revenue for December, the year, month-to-date revenue was $930,000, $942 and change. And the expenses for the month were $918,394. So it showed a positive cash flow there. Year to date, you'll see on the summary that there were $11,320 for revenues, and expenses were $10,929,000. So we had a positive cash flow there. Total, where's my paper here? Okay, total revenues that she marked here that reflect on the financials is $11,786,073 were the revenues for the year, which was a 94%, and the expenditures for the year to date were $10,929,497. So that did show a positive cash flow.
And hey, Bill, not to pile on, but one of the things that I noticed in the balance sheet between the assets and the liabilities,
Yes, sir.
they don't balance. And I'm curious if that's something that we see often in the assets. We've got $11,322,283. In the total liabilities, it's $11,321,949, which is the difference of like $333. And I'm just curious if that is known, if that's something that we see, a non-balancing balance sheet. It's like an oxymoron. So I just wanted to check on that.
We can't have any of those oxymorons.
It's, yeah, no morons should
Yeah,
be.
yeah, no
Okay,
morons.
So.
Yeah. You know, reading the sheets here, I think these are variances between year to year. Liabilities don't total up to what, I don't see that. This is $430,000 worth of liabilities, and prior year was 1.6, so yeah, on the very bottom, total liability reserve retained earnings.
Right.
And then there's the prior year. So that means we had a $126,000, $588.77 difference between the prior year and the current year.
Well, I think that the disparity I'm pointing out is that the current year, the total assets and the total liabilities should match, correct? And they don't on my sheet that was emailed to me, is that correct?
Not on mine either.
No,
Okay.
no, they don't.
So it's
Usually
not compared to
That's
prior
something
years.
that comes with the audit. And I'm not sure exactly. When I look at the liabilities here, they total up. Yeah, there's
Yeah, I think the point is that-
actually one looks like a rounded figure and the other looks like an actual figure. 'Cause you
No,
look at the
it's-
current liabilities here on the sheet, on the comparative balance sheet, are $11,321,949, and the assets are $11,322,283. So there's a buck and change there.
It's $333, I believe.
Well, I don't think, yeah, he's going, see, and then I got this one here. But it's not, nothing there. 126.
I'll have that easier for you to read if you'd like.
Easier to read, well,
Well, sorry.
it's just in the balance sheet, and so I think that the integrity of our financial statements are very important, and I wouldn't call that a rounding error, so I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the folks that are putting together these financial statements to see if maybe there's an error in input, or that's a manual error. I think it's important that we keep track of those.
I think Bill and Rick can speak with.
Oh, we'll take care of that, that's
Cool.
not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
So there's another issue on the revenues.
While we're at it,
I'll let you catch up in your notes.
Well, yeah,
Ready?
I can only write as fast as I
Okay,
can.
sorry.
All right, I got it.
We're looking at the summary sheet.
Yes,
We have, it's under revenue, it says December revenues were 930,942.
Uh-huh.
But yet, under the breakdown right below it, month to date,
Mhm.
864,880.
the expenses match up, but the revenues don't.
no, they don't. And I thought, I checked this number against this number, and, oh, we still have a little refining to do, I guess.
How do we conduct an accurate audit if these numbers aren't correct?
Well, our audit
Because we
will,
provide the auditors these numbers, right?
yes, yeah, they go through it and go through these because that does not match. Let me explain, I'm pretty sure that this colored sheet, the summary sheet, she's doing from the sheets following it, which are. Yes. Those, and I almost want to say it's a waste of our time, because all these numbers are in this.
Yeah, month to date revenue.
So you just financials, but I don't want to say that.
We
because
need to have an
people maybe-
accurate summary sheet, and then you don't necessarily want to see these.
I always want to see the detail.
Okay, you want to see the details.
This is nice because it's one or two page. Gotcha. To look at, but, I mean, she's got to be spending a lot of time looking up numbers and keyboarding them, because,
Ultimately, I think the question is this human error? Are these just mistakes in input for the summary?
This
Or is
may
it
be-
within our financial documents that we have an issue with the calculations in the
These,
balance?
these are correct.
so those are
This one
what's in the
here-
computer.
Right.
Yeah, and this one here may be a
That's a human summary.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly.
A spreadsheet error in going and querying the financials. That's all that probably is. It's just
Well, I'm guessing
Well,
she just
there's-
takes these
not
numbers.
finding the
and
right
puts them in.
line.
Well, we have three different numbers for revenue. The one that's typed in the sentence, 930, in this little summary that's got the yellow and white, 864. And you turn to the computer printout, 889.
Yeah, well, look at the bottom where it says total revenues, and that's where it matches the
Okay.
deal, 930, 942, 10.
942.
Yeah, that matches the top of the
Okay.
revenue. And the breakout here could be missing the interdepartmental charges.
Missing what?
The interdepartmental charges Peter has to pay Paul.
Missing or omitted?
She did not copy those over from the actual report to this hand-generated summary sheet, I think is what you're saying. Right, yes, sir.
Well, regardless, it needs to be resolved. This is just a continuation, and we have
I'm not gonna argue with you.
losing faith.
We'll get it right. We'll get it right. These are correct. The summary doesn't seem to match quite yet. Right. But we're working on it. Okay. Well, keep working. Yes, sir. I think that's
There's work to be done.
enough said, right? Yeah. All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Are you finished?
No, sir, I did want to bring up on the December report, we will start bidding out engineers and testing companies to start testing our substation equipment. You know, the equipment's almost antiquated. It's functioning well now, but we need to find out the condition of that so that we can plan for capital expenditures and replacement of those equipments. We need to know the condition of the current equipment, so we're gonna start that testing.
And that's a third-party firm.
That'll be a third-party firm. We have a company called Atwell as our basic electrical engineer, and they take care of the substation and the new changes to the AB sub and the SCADA system. But this is something outside of what they do. So they will help us choose a contractor that is capable of doing that testing so that we can review the status of the shape of that equipment. Because when you have brain surgery, you call it brain surgeon, and that's not what we do. Gary's favorite thing in the world is the solar accounts. And we keep growing in our total numbers. We have 25 producers and 34 residential and 2 commercial solar customers. So we have some that have been permitted and are in the install phase and haven't started producing yet. You see,
I had a question on solar just for my edification, as I'm pretty new. In terms of the units that are returned to our system from solar customers, and we're taking that back, and then I presume that goes back into our output of power that otherwise we would be getting from ARPA, correct?
that's correct.
Are we getting that power at a better price than we would be buying from ARPA? I guess my question is it beneficial for us to have solar? Is it less expensive to gain those units of power?
No, we still pay ARPA our wholesale costs for that power that's returned to the grid that's created by the solar customers. We pay ARPA for that power because they didn't sell it, but they want paid for it because they're our contractor.
And are we
But we
also
take
paying
that
the solar
wholesale,
customer?
we take that wholesale power that we just bought from ARPA, which happens to come from the solar folks, and then sell it at retail.
Okay.
So it's the same, it's as if we
So
bought it
it's a
from
wash in
ARPA
terms
or
of
we
cost.
bought it from the solar provider.
Okay, I see. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. And the last thing was the digger derrick truck. We were all excited about maybe getting that demo truck, but they haven't disposed of that truck yet. And they didn't sound like they were very encouraging. So we've decided to bid out another unit to see if the prices are comparable. Trinidad just bought one like we were gonna buy, and it was like $360,000. And it was a used truck. The new ones are about $500,000. We put in $250,000 because we thought we were gonna get the demo. So we're exploring the different avenues because it's hard to afford a $500,000 truck. But just wanted to make you aware of that. We haven't purchased anything yet. We're trying to find the best deal that we can that'll suit the task. Sir?
Anything else? I had a couple of just questions I was gonna ask Tom, I didn't get to it when he was there. Just for information purposes, about how many meters do we have that are not RF red meters in water? And how many do we have in inventory to install?
We average about 3,350 meters in our system, give or take, depends how many, abandoned houses or the rest we might have. Of that, we currently have 1,600, and I want to say it was 4 when we did meter reading in December, is what has been put towards, changed over to radio reads. The vast majority of those are all residential, because that's really where our bread and butter is at. And the expense to go towards your commercial meters, 2-inch, 4-inch, etc., those are really expensive, so we're just kind of saving those towards the end.
And how many uninstalled RF meters do we still have for residents or whatever.
That number I'd have to double check for you.
I guess we're almost done with the project, or do we need to? Because you get a payback on manpower reading, obviously.
Correct. Yeah, we're still a little bit under halfway total replacement, but we're over halfway when it comes towards residential meters.
Okay. Okay, and I want to ask Bill the same thing, if you know how many, we basically have all the electric meters are.
All the
infrared.
electric meters are
Yeah,
remote
okay.
read.
Okay, thank you.
There may be a commercial meter or two, but I think they're all remote now.
Okay,
And we're upgrading those remotes as we go along. We just bought 50 of the kind that we can control from the office.
with remote disconnect.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right, and then the same question about paper lights, yard lights, whatever we call them, street lights.
Vapor light.
How many are LED?
We have a
Oh,
different
that's
class, the street lights and then the rental lights. And almost all of them have been replaced with LEDs versus the high pressure sodium.
The city-owned lights
All the city-owned lights,
Yeah.
we own them all.
and rentals, that's up to the owner.
No, we own those.
We own those, we
Yes.
just-
We
rent them?
charge them by the month for
Monthly
that
fee,
light.
okay. Okay. And then I noticed you stubbed some poles, I've seen this happen a lot. Are we getting to a point where we're gonna have a calamity and we don't anticipate? This is more operations question, but just.
Operations, every time the wind blows real hard, we find the poles that have butt rot. We find ones that are damaged. And the pole enforcers enable us to enforce that pole and stand it back up. A lot of them have a lot of infrastructure on them. Take, in example, the one down by Perkins Motors on the alley right there between First and Second
Yeah.
Street. We had to pole enforce that pole. You see that the distribution and the secondary times two is on that
Yeah.
main pole going down that alley. Without shutting half the town
Major-
off
major
for
outage.
several, couple days,
Right.
it's hard to replace those. When we bust them off, when they do bust off, then we have to
Major
take
outage.
the trucks and put up temporary
Yeah,
cross arms
Brace it and all
to
that.
carry that, and then we put in a new pole and then set it up underneath the wires and set it down. But that comes at an outage when you're talking with the bigger voltage.
Right. I guess my concern was, I was out by O'Reilly, and there's a 69 pole that's reinforced. And
We have two
That would
69
be a
poles
major-
that are causing me some worry at night. And that's on our list to
Yeah.
replace.
so it just popped into my head. I wonder how much of that, because
Well-
that one goes down where the world hurt.
Our poles, our 69 poles, come from the infrastructure that's just behind the Holiday Inn. You'll see
Yeah,
that
the old
structure.
Southeast.
Right, the old Southeast
Right.
shop, and goes there. That one on the highway may be Black Hills,
But this one's right by O'Reilly.
right by
It's the first
O'Reilly's.
pole up
In the
after
front,
the crossing
yeah,
to the east.
to the east. That might be Black Hills or Southeast.
Okay. It's on the line that comes right down 3rd Street, so whatever. who's-
Right,
who's
and
that?
there's so we've got
Okay,
3 different companies with power lines in there.
I didn't realize that. They
Yes,
came
sir.
into the city. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks. I didn't want to get too far in the weeds here, but,
That's all right. Any questions you got?
all right. Any other questions or comments for Bill? Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Montoya. And while you're coming, could I request that somehow we get an electronic copy of your stuff ultimately, so we don't have to, if we want to keep it, we don't have to keep paper?
Oh,
Print that to a PDF or something and email it to us somewhere
so
along
that
the
was a
line?
late minute addition for the stuff that was received, that you're not talking about the financial stuff, right?
No, whatever your report is.
The report, this, was,
That's all you're gonna present? Okay,
that should have been included in.
okay, it is, it is. Okay, I thought we were
But,
gonna have
no, I
another.
do have additional items that were added last minute.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's fine.
I'll try to make sure that I have anything in the future included on what she gives.
Okay, minor deal, thank you.
So, start with the financials. December revenues were $120,249. Year-to-date revenue is 1.232, 720 million.
Can you push your button there?
Sorry about that. If you look on the financials on the, I think it's the very last page, you can see that we had a year-to-date expenditures of 1.245 million. That's where you'll see then on the balance sheet that we had a net change in the fund balance of $12,664.22. That is obviously under the budget for the year, which is 1.316 million, so we came in under budget, but didn't quite meet the revenues to pay for that. But pretty close, $12,000 isn't too far off. But I think also what saved us was the increase in rates. Obviously, or we would have been, that 12,000 would have been a lot more than 12,000. So we're getting there. I think next year you'll definitely see us in the black.
Is that a guarantee?
I hope so. I hope so.
Put that on your paper, Gary.
Well, being that we started we started the rate hike in July, I think it was, July, August. So we had a half year of the increases. I feel like we should definitely be on par for being in the black.
We should have started in April.
I agree. Well, that would have made me be in the black anyway, so. Which again, the city received 94% of its anticipated revenues based on the $1.316 million budget that we had accounted for. If you do look on the last page on the expenses, I have the same kind of problem there where the depreciation and other was not in there, but if you look at the month-to-date budget, it's gonna be $6,941.67. That's gonna be the same. Basically, she just took our total depreciation and expenses and divided it by 12. So that will be the same depreciation and other there. The other is basically the capital money that we had in sanitation for roll-offs and things like that, which I spent that money on roll-offs this last year. So in all reality, again, that depreciation should say 6,900 and the other should say 4167. So your month to date there would be 159,341. So I apologize about that. And I guess the rest of it is the information that you guys normally look at as far as our customers, the kind of tonnage that we're doing that goes out to the landfill, and then the tonnage that we're doing for both Southeast Recycling and Clean Valley. Does anybody have any questions on any of that?
40-yard box is still going strong, it looks like.
Yes, in fact, summer came out really well, I feel like, this year. 5 boxes over the normal that we have, but the increases in prices, I say increases in prices really, it was more of a balancing for the prices, but hasn't deterred anyone from still getting them.
I'm not sure what 40 and 20 yard boxes are, if you don't
So
mind.
they're the roll-offs. They're the big roll-offs that you can order that we send out to, well, anywhere, businesses or.
Okay, just the huge dumpsters, the industrial dumpsters.
Yeah.
There's one on 10th and San Juan right now.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was gonna say, I do have them, I
You
just
have
we
some,
don't call
yes.
them that.
Yeah, they call them roll-offs or 40 and 20 yard boxes.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions about the revenues? Mike, you're looking at me a little funny there.
No, good.
No? Okay. Okay, I think everything, as far as my summaries and financials, they kind of look good, made sense.
All right, thank you, Martin.
Okay, the other two things that you pointed out, Gary, I just kind of wanted to bring up both the things that I talked to you guys previously about as far as the trash trucks and then also the cardboard program. So I wanted to talk first about the trash trucks. I know we mentioned this before. I was able to get numbers on what it would cost for a company to fully service trucks, and it's rather expensive. So the first one, when you see Elliott at the bottom of that, you see a cost of $247,800. I tried not to print out a whole bunch of stuff for you, but he's willing to trade, take the other trucks that we have in, trade us in $80,000 on the older vehicles. So that'll get us to about $33,560 a year. We're paying over 5 years before we trade those ones in and get another new set is what I'm trying to set up here. So $33,560 per year, just kind of keep that in your mind. The full service cost to have somebody fully service the trucks would cost us $104,000 per year. So that's about 3 times the cost to have somebody fully service the trucks, and they would never be ours. They would be theirs, and they would fully service them no matter what happened to them. But it's 3 times the cost, and I just don't know that that's something that we can afford.
So the $80,000 that you get on trade, that's for trading in what? How many?
Both of our trucks, we have our 2 main trucks basically. We have a backup, but we'd be keeping that, and we wouldn't be doing anything with that. We'd just keep it for a backup. But the 2 new trucks, like I said, would cost roughly $250,000 minus the $80,000, and then every 5 years we would trade those ones back in, get roughly the same trade-in value, around $80,000 to $90,000 depending on the condition, and then have 2 new trucks for another 5 years. I think that'll keep us from having to deal with the maintenance issues that happen that are basically happen with these kind of trucks being used on a daily basis. These vehicles are used all day, every day, more than any other vehicle in the city's fleet. So we just have issues with them constantly.
Do they provide a loaner if one's down for an extended period?
That's a good question. I can ask him that. But again, we do already have a backup truck, and we have another truck at Industrial Park should we need to count on that one.
We have 4 trucks, right, Mark?
4 trucks total. Yeah. But it's the 2 main ones that are being used absolutely every day that I'm trying to come up with a system that keeps these trucks newish so that we don't have all the maintenance issues that come with having a truck that's used all day, every day, like these trucks are. So basically, right now, I didn't give this information to you. I gave it to you guys in the past, but we spent $78,000 on one truck already in repairs, and on the other one we spent another $50,000. So I think, and I don't know what it's going to look like this year or next year, and it's just going to keep their money sinks. I've seen it in Lamar. I see it here, and I'm trying to come up with a program to prevent us from having to keep climbing down that rabbit hole. If I feel like we can do something like this, it'll keep our trucks newer and in good condition, and we don't have to deal with the maintenance issues.
If I recall, you said Lamar maintains their own vehicles?
So they do have side loading vehicles, only 1 employee per truck, and only 1 employee for residential, 1 employee for commercial, whereas we have 5 employees total. But the problem with those trucks is you have to have a maintenance crew that's able to maintain them.
Yeah.
They constantly go down all the time, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, but they stock all the parts for all the trucks. So anytime an arm falls apart or anything goes down on the truck, they have it there and in stock. So they just call the maintenance crew in, no matter what time it is, they come in, they fix it, get them back going.
We tried the side loader once, and that was a money pit.
Yeah.
That's why we got rid of it and went back to these rear loaders with tipping bars and the totes. A little less expensive. And Martin, this is straight outright purchase, or is this a lease purchase?
This is an outright purchase for the trucks. That last sheet, I'm sorry, is not anything to do with the trucks. It's for the next thing I'm going to talk about. But it is a straight purchase with trade-in. All they've done is guarantee me that they will take the trucks in 5 years and give me an amount, so that way we can do it all over
Budget
again.
over,
Yeah,
So
that's,
those numbers work out to approximately 31,560 per year for that 5-year period, just ownership cost, purely no value of money, just to buy it.
correct,
Per year per truck.
correct.
and maintenance is on top of that.
So
Is that right?
we
Or
would
is
be
it-
responsible for maintenance
Yeah, so this is
during that
just
5-year period.
truck
Yes.
ownership for this, yeah.
Yes.
What's the trucks that we use today, what's the average age?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Well, the one we
I've
have at
only
the,
been here for a year, almost 2 years now.
the one we have at the industrial park and the spare, they're 10 years plus.
You can keep these trucks for 10 years, absolutely, but
But not the main residential and
those two main
commercial
trucks.
How old are they?
What's that?
How old are those ones?
The backup trucks or?
No, the
No,
main
no,
ones.
the main
Oh,
trucks,
they are 5 years old.
yes.
And we still spent 130,000 between the two of them on maintenance this year.
Yes. And I have that report here with me.
And maintenance is by contractor showing up to do it, or?
That's the problem, is that we don't have the know-how to fix these trucks, nor the equipment or any of the parts.
Yeah, okay.
So a lot of the times, we have to take this truck, and if it's in condition to drive it. If not, we have to have it picked up and towed to Pueblo or Springs, and it costs a lot of money.
So I'm aware of let me start. Should we think about, is there a possibility we could have all us little towns with trash trucks co-fund a maintenance department, standardize on a certain kind of vehicle, and have a crew that rotates one day a
I think
week? or-
that'd be swell if it actually worked in practice. We have a motor pool department, and our guys can fix most of the generic things. But when a huge hydraulic arm breaks, you gotta send the hydraulic cylinders to Precision Hydraulics and
Right.
have them redo that. Or if the compactor, the big wedge breaks down, then we don't have the capacity to do that, and neither would anybody else unless they actually specialized in those types of trucks. Those are maintenance costs that start to go up as the truck starts to age. So 5 years is about all those trucks, those heavy trucks like that,
Right.
heavy use trucks are worth. And then the maintenance starts going up with anything.
So if at the 5-year mark, this past year, if we spent an average of 65,000 to repair each of those, you have any idea what it was in year 4, 3, 2?
No, so I guess maybe I may have misrepresented that. So the total amount that we've paid for those vehicles, that amount that I gave you was since we've purchased them
Cumulative.
over a
So
5-year
what is
period.
this year?
Okay,
No, it's just cumulative.
Right. That's not per year.
okay.
So all I'm saying is that could work for now, but what happens next year whenever I don't have a budget for a $70,000 repair? I'm trying to get a system where, like Bill just said, 5 years is about, after that, they're just gonna sharply fall off the cliff. And I'm just trying to prevent that from happening by coming up with some kind of program where this guy's worked with me and coming up with a program to where he'll buy those vehicles after a 5-year period for a decent price. I feel like $80,000 for vehicles that we purchased for, I'm not exactly sure.
Years ago, we used to have a deal with Case, that they would take our old backhoes every other year. Bring them down, we'd put our old tires on them, they'd put the new tires on the old one, and they would give us a huge trade-in value for them, just so that they could keep those machines, because used machinery goes pretty good in the construction industry. The same way with these trucks, if the guy's willing to, because they'll refurbish them and they'll sell them to Sugar City and those types of guys.
And another option as far as selling them, I know that Rocky Ford is going through a mess right now too, so they might be another person that we might consider selling it to, just as, for the same price, but to them instead of these guys, because I know they're in need of a truck pretty bad. So,
Keep one on, I guess what we can say.
but anyway, I just wanted to put those numbers out there. I know that we had talked about this a few months ago, and I want to get this back into your guys' heads and your thoughts. Looking for advice, looking for what you guys think. This doesn't have to be the only way, but.
Yeah, this will be just a few short months and we'll be doing capital budgets for next year. So we need to be thinking about that up front.
And you can see the fund balance is on the balance sheet. I mean, the money's there, that's what it's there for. That's why we collect that, so that we can purchase these kind of vehicles and keep running. So the money's there. We just wanna make sure that we do it right and that we do it reasonably and it makes sense.
Not just for now, but for later.
So this isn't the final outcome of everything, or this is it? This is the deal that you struck with this guy?
I've been talking to him. I mean, we can go to someone else. I can try a whole different bunch of people. I mean, I feel like what this guy has produced for us is a good, accurate number of what we're seeing out there right now. Trucks were a lot less expensive 5 years ago, and I'm sure you're well aware of that.
So this kind of machinery, is that something we're familiar with or that we have? As far as the brand name, there's a bunch of options for different chassis and so on, but the actual truck, the moving components.
So for this one right here, it comes standard with a Freightliner chassis and a Cobra body. So a Cobra body is something similar to a Heil, which is what we normally have right now. But I really feel like every 5 years, so long as we're doing replacing these every 5 years, I think we're going to be in good shape.
The old trucks are both Hiles.
The dealer out of Commerce City, that's who you're dealing with?
The dealer is Elliott Equipment Company up in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah. Okay. Commerce City, is their closest office for service that they send people from?
So they won't be servicing it because we would be responsible for service during that 5-year period.
So it takes till it really goes down.
I mean, they would obviously cover any warranty work that comes with the vehicle, but yes, again, and we don't have to take it to there, I'm sure. And I've talked to this guy before. I was trying to come up with a plan where he could fully service it, but he just couldn't come up with something that made sense. But if we can get it to a dealer somewhere like in Pueblo, they would cover that cost under warranty.
You may have answered this, but is the truck 5 years old, or have we had it 5 years and it was used beforehand?
We bought the trucks that we currently have brand new.
They are new, so they're 5 years old.
Yeah, they're brand new. When we bought them,
They were brand new.
they were brand new. We've used them pretty hard.
You're supposed to be.
So, any more questions about that?
I think we're good, thank you.
I wanted to add, the depreciation that we were looking for. She doesn't calculate it in December because she has to capitalize the assets, so it won't be run until after the audit. That's an annual thing, it's equity in it.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
So it just leaves it off, so then we can, when the audited numbers come in, plug that in so it matches?
Yes,
Well, it should be very similar to the previous month.
yes, it'd be similar,
Yeah, they got whatever schedule they're using for depreciation, it should.
yeah.
And then I guess before I go into the next thing, one thing I was thinking about when Tom was up here talking about the issues that they're having over at Wendy's. The sanitation department has also been having issues with that particular company trying to dispose of grease in their trash cans and in their dumpsters. I've almost had to threaten, I don't like to use that word, but I've told them that they need to keep oil and grease and stuff out of the dumpsters, or we'll no longer service them. So that was a big issue. It was ongoing for about 3 months, but since then, you know, when they're putting it in bags and they put it in a dumpster, it just gets
Blows up
everywhere. It's all over the dumpsters, it's all over the ground, it's all over everything inside there. And it's not sanitary for the drivers and the guys to go in there and get that stuff, not to mention that it provides for a hazardous environment to try and walk on, pull the dumpsters out. So we've had issues with them considering that, so it doesn't surprise me that they're having issues with them possibly putting it down in pipes that it shouldn't be going.
Is there an ordinance to specify that they have to?
Yes, and it's also a fire department violation.
Okay.
So if they haven't cleaned up their act, if somebody will let me know, I'll get involved.
Okay. What I told them was that the landfill won't accept that kind of material. So if we're picking it up, basically we can't dump it. So I told them they can no longer put it in the dumpsters, which they should have methods.
Most
for
restaurants
disposing
have
of that.
a tank
Right.
that they go dump that stuff in, and then a recycler or reclaimer comes and gets it.
Yeah.
So just wanted to point
Plus
that
the
out.
grease trap shouldn't be anything we're handling, so.
The last thing real quick, I'm sorry to take up so much time, but the last item I want to talk to you about is the cardboard program that we, again, previously talked about. The last sheet there stapled to your packet. I just did kind of a quick numbers just to kind of show you guys what it would look like for cost versus revenue. So basically the containers are about $750 right now. For $100 of them, you're looking at $75,000 in cost. I feel like we can use our backup truck for the cardboard program, so we don't have to look at buying a whole new truck. If we do like a customer charge of about $25 a month, that's about $300 per year. Your total revenue for 100 of them would net you about $30,000. I think we would need at least one more employee. I think I could probably make it work with one more. With that being considered, for the first 100, the city would lose that initial investment of the $75,000 and $13,000 for what it would cost to hire an employee. Those numbers change as you increase the number of containers. For 200, it would take about 9 years to recoup your costs, but at least at that point, after 9 years, you would be gaining revenue and also have paid for your dumpsters and have a cardboard program in place.
And a truck to buy again.
I'm
Sorry
not
about
sure
that.
you can use a regular trash truck to pick up cardboard. Usually that stuff's baled.
You can. So basically all we would be doing is making sure that the truck is clean, put all the cardboard in it, it would basically compact it like it does trash. Then we would just take it over to a facility like Clean Valley and just dump it all out. And then they would be responsible for sorting it and doing whatever they do with it.
Bale it and sell it.
Bale it and selling it, yeah.
So refresh my memory, these containers, are they totes or are they
These would be metal containers,
like
our trash,
lift up? Okay.
like our trash.
For the 5 yards or whatever those are?
Yep.
Dumpsters?
We can change size, we can make them smaller, we can make them bigger, but they would be for cardboard only.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And so, I mean, I can tell you right now, and I've seen it in at least the big McDonald's, Carl's Jr., and those places, their trash cans are just almost all cardboard. I mean, I see Carl's Jr.'s has a huge problem with it. And if you gave them 1 or 2 of these containers and they put nothing but cardboard in it, then you're taking that out of the waste stream, it's not going out to the landfill, it's being recycled. I mean,
And you
that's,
don't have to haul it to the dump and pay for it by the ton
we
as
don't have
well.
to pay for it because we're taking it to a recycling facility. I feel like, and we're just being we're being responsible as far as recycling. I think this is just one more thing we can do, and I don't feel like the cost is extreme. But we do have over 400 commercial accounts. You could go multiple ways with this. You can either tell them it's all voluntary, they can rent one, or you can tell them you're all doing it. You're all paying an extra $25 a month, $300 a year, and everybody's getting them. And then everybody's putting cardboard in them. It's however you feel like you want to enforce that. But if we have over 400 commercial accounts, we need 400 units, it would take us approximately 3 to 4 years to recoup that cost.
That's a staggering amount of money.
So just another thing I wanted to get in your guys' head, I feel like this is something that we can do. I don't feel like it would be too hard to implement it.
What's your anticipation of how many containers would actually be purchased? So we're looking at 1 to 400 as far as options. What do you think is realistic in this community?
I think if you make it mandatory, you'd need at all 400 of them. If you don't make it mandatory and it's voluntary, and I think a fair amount of people would do it, I think you need probably about 200.
Is there a way you could, for the smaller volume, I'll call them establishments, use 1 or 2 extra 96-gallon totes instead of?
You could do that. I feel like a better option, and maybe I'm wrong, but you could maybe put like 1 container for multiple entities, multiple commercial businesses. Maybe put like 2 or 3 in an alley for like where there's a lot of businesses, and they kind of just split that cost maybe, and then everybody could put cardboard in them. And so maybe you don't have to have 1 per commercial account, but we could kind of.
It would offset though too, so like if Carl's Jr. needed 3, but these other 3 are sharing 1.
So like in the alley where you have the movie theater, maybe you could put 3 or 4 containers in there and everybody can use them. Yeah. And then, because it's just cardboard, it's not trash, so. And then I think maybe if we picked up Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, not every day, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that would be enough to make sure that everybody is serviced.
To get 3-day cycle. So that, okay.
This is just a detail, I don't expect an answer really, but knowing how the trash works in the alley by the bank there, where I go into my office, God help you if you put a cardboard only dumpster there, because nobody can read.
Would it have the slit?
It would be almost exactly what is out there now. They would have.
So what do you do when they dump their trash into your cardboard only thing?
There's gonna be a learning curve, I'm sure, but I think eventually, and again, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm stealing this design from Lamar. I mean, this is what they've done. A lot of that can be taken out of if there's a trash bag in it. The guy will take the trash bag out before he dumps the cardboard in.
I do know that a lot of those commercial bins like that, the owners will actually padlock those shut, and only when they, like our recycle for our paper, it's padlocked, so nobody can come in and dump their trash.
Buy some locks, Dean.
To put a rod across the top and
Mandatory.
bolt it, or,
And there will be issues where there are places where you won't be able to fit one because there's just a small area. We'll just have to see what we can do and try to do our best with placement and where they can be put and placed.
Is the pricing structure also borrowed from
Yes.
from Lamar? This is what they charge.
Yes.
So yeah.
That's exactly what they charge.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't like the way the numbers are, you can change the per month charge, or you can. I mean, I don't know if you want to mess with that too much. I feel like that's a cheap price to pay for this kind of service. I feel like it should.
Yeah.
It should be something.
And the business also, if they're a high volume place, part of the selling of this project, I'll call it, is to say, now you're not going to pay us for 3 dumpsters 3 times a week to dump your trash. You're going to pay us 3 times for 1 dumpster to pick up your slop, and the rest of it's gonna go into cardboard, and that's gonna cost you $25.
Right.
So they'll end up
So their price
doing
would
better than breaking even if.
decrease
Right.
on the other end, and while also being conscious.
And we'll save hauling it to the dump and paying for the tonnage. Recycling will go up and all that, so it's.
And if
it's
we're
not
taking
a-
this to Clean Valley, it's not very far away. It's
Yeah.
right down the road. So we don't have to.
We ever charge for overages if a box is too full?
For our 40 and 30 yard, or
No, just the regular little 3-yard dumpsters.
we don't.
So I have a waste management account, and if that lid is not flush, when the truck pulls up, they take a photograph of it, and I mean flush. If it sticks up this far, I get a bill for as much as $250. I pay $150 a month for them to dump that dumpster. If it sticks up this far, I've had bills $250.
That's something we can consider if you guys would like to go that route.
And, you know, and if someone's paying for a 3-yard dumpster, and if it's heaped,
Yeah.
then we're picking up that tab.
The only thing we do not do is if there is trash outside of the container, we don't pick that up. Now, they're responsible for putting it in the containers, we're responsible for picking up the containers, but that's about the only stipulation we have.
Okay. Let's move on. Thanks. Good work, Mark. Appreciate that. Thank you. Right, time for new business. The city manager have a thing or two to say?
No, sir.
Nothing? All right. Governing body. Okay, so we have some concerns that we'd like to address as far as our conduit obligations and whatever. And we had a meeting with Rick and said we need to pass this on to the city council, but let me review our issues, just so everyone's aware. We're concerned to know whether the Southeast Water Conservation District can regulate how we get our water. Does it have to come through the conduit, or can it come from the river flow, which means we can keep pumping the way we are presently? Is there an authority or ability for the district to withhold our water if we don't participate in the conduit? And do we have to pay or take for the amount of water that we initially requested per the MOU that was signed many moons ago?
Are you wanting an answer?
Sure.
Well, I'm not an authority and I don't do water law, but the way I read the agreements, and when we're talking water, we're just talking project water. That's a really important distinction for the public. We want to be sure that we're clear that we're only talking project water. The answer is, I think they can regulate in all fashions.
Yeah. And we know a lot of us think a lot of things, so I guess we're requesting that the council find us an attorney who's skilled in law, who's an advocate for fierce advocate for helping us to find out. Some attorney that has a good reputation, I'll say it that way, and has experience and review the agreements that have been signed. Find us some kind of certifiable or highly reliable answers to those questions I just read. And if there are legal remedies or other actions we can do to resolve by, I don't know how you do it, anyway, resolve to our satisfaction that how this is gonna go, we'd like to have that be done. And we can't make, as the board can't make that request, so we'd like to pass this on to the council, have them pursue that. Our second concern is we need to determine the amount of water that the city actually needs. Someone calculated those a long time ago, and I'm not comfortable understanding that those are based in fact or still accurate or whatever. Suggestion for that would be contract with a firm, an engineering firm, to review the data that was used, the information, the projections, whatever, to determine that and see if we still are comfortable with that request, that assessment. That's the right word for what we're requesting, which we made a commitment to for the conduit. And fourthly, we have a selenium problem at the wastewater plant. It'd be nice, I think, if we could hire a firm to determine solutions and associated costs, and if there are alternatives to that, do that, so we have some kind of a firm solution to that issue. Anybody have any questions or comments at this point?
I would think the selenium issue is not as much a priority, because if we do get somebody that says their opinion is we're SOL,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not doing anything on the selenium
Yeah.
now.
Well, that would also go back to your first issue. If someone says that we can't change our amount, do we really need anyone to come and determine what amount we need if we can't change the amount anyway?
That's true. Yep.
I'm just.
No, there's no sense finding out where it came from if it's locked in.
Mr. Seaver had a comment, or has a comment.
Please.
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know that I know some of those questions, they're concerns that were raised last year, especially how much water do we actually need to help control our selenium issue, how much water would La Junta truly benefit from, and several of the other questions that were there. We couldn't truly budget anyone to do that last year because our budget was already, you see that we operated about negative $500 and some thousand. So that was another deferred cost we put to this year. On January 2nd, we went into contract with Hazen and Sawyer Engineering out of Denver. They have a couple of specialists who look at selenium. They've designed, helped build, etc., several systems from Florida up to Fountain Fort Carson, up in there that they have those issues. So we're providing them information they have now. They're going to do a limited study, could be that. Transferred some monies from a different section to come over. We're hoping that maybe a couple might be down tonight to come and sit in at City Council. If they're unable to make it, we're at least already in that process of gleaning all the information they need, taking additional water samples here. We're going to take samples from Pueblo so we know exactly what kind of water we would get, recreate scenarios, all that goes along with it. We had hoped for perhaps a February timeline, but it looks like that's a little short. So we're probably hoping to get a full report from them before your March meeting. Along with that, they're going to take the 2016 selenium study that was done by Farnsworth, where they offered several different alternative solutions. They're going to reevaluate those and bring those costs up to $2024 and not $2016. As we all know, the cost of everything through the pandemic and the rest has gone up exponentially. So we're looking forward to that work. They're going to be here to backstop everybody's opinions and to also present independent third-party review of all that information.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir?
Thank you.
So 4's kind of done.
There we go. All right, An additional point of concern is our revegetation project. It seems to be dragging along kind of bad. You may have budgeted things this year, but we came up with the idea that maybe we need to contract that out or find an expert to help us get that done. And Mr. Lorenz Sutherland is here, and he spent his occupation partially doing that. Do you have any, would you like to address this and give us comments whether you think there are firms or local, well, not even local, entities who could help us do that? What your general comments are? Is that too much off the?
Can you please come to the mic, sir?
Come on, Mayor.
Sir,
I thought we got rid of you.
keep
Well,
trying.
You can.
State
So-
your name too.
I had asked Lorenz to come. He,
No, it's
in
fine.
his professional life, prior to retirement, he dealt with this in a lot more detail than I think anybody on this board. I think he has some knowledge to offer in maybe a different perspective.
I'm teasing him. He and I are on very good terms.
And he was the former chair of the utility board, so it's good to have you back and offer your expertise, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Put your
Yeah,
mic
since
down.
there's a couple new members here, need to remember that under Colorado water law, the state constitution says that the water is property of the public. Okay? And so what we have, we do not own water. What we own is a right to use the water. In Colorado, water is not appurtenant to land, so it can be transferred. Okay. And so what Lahana did, they chose to purchase those 4 farms under the Holbrook. And there's also a state statute that says that that land has to be revegetated to a specific standard. So that's just a real quick review. So Lahana has a decree that says certain things will be done, which includes the revegetation. To Gary's question, are there people around that can professionally do that? And the answer is yes. Now, this isn't probably the venue to which I should make those recommendations, so I can make those recommendations to the city manager, or Gary, you can be involved in that. But a little bit of my background, the subject of revegetation got started clear back in the early 1990s when we dealt with the Rocky Ford ditch case, where Aurora purchased, there were 2 sales for the Rocky Ford Canal and the water rights associated with the Rocky Ford Canal that went to Aurora. At the time, there wasn't any revegetation requirements, but the state passed the statute for revegetation in 1994. Now the question came, well, how do we revegetate that? And so that was part of my research program in my 8 to 5 job. And so we conducted about 4 or 5 years of in-depth research on exactly how to revegetate previously irrigated lands. At that point in time, why we turned that over to the private sector and the city of Aurora. Aurora established their own revegetation program. And we've been at this about 35 years. And so it's not easy. It can be very expensive to revegetate these previously irrigated lands. And you have to remember what we're trying to do. The Great Plains Shortgrass Prairie has about an age, as it exists now, is about 8 to 10,000 years. So it's taken about 8 to 10,000 years for what you see on the prairie to get to where it is today. The Great Plains short grass prairie is much older than that. But originally, the Great Plains was forested, believe it or not. And those forests went away. So what you're trying to do with the revegetation program is you're trying to replicate in 5, 10, 12 years what has taken natural plant succession 8 to 10,000 years, okay? So there's a very systematic way of doing it, and there are professionals that do that kind of work. Now, you're very lucky right now because there's now a manual and a guide to do that. It was just recently published by the Lower Ark Water Conservancy District. The authors are Jerry Knapp and Rich Rhodes. And what they did, they put together a combination of all the experience that a lot of us have expended over the past 35 years in one publication on exactly how to revegetate previously irrigated lands. And that is available, but I strongly urge that this be done by professionals, and again, I can make a recommendation to city manager and the utility board, but not in this venue.
I understand. No, I didn't expect that.
And oh, by the way, since this is part of my expertise, I am not one of those experts that will do it. I'm
Okay.
trying to be retired.
Thank you for unretiring for a few minutes here.
Dr. PhD Salt.
FUD.
So yeah, the short
Okay.
answer to your question
Okay.
is yes. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Okay, I guess we'd like to encourage the administration to pursue this other avenue, and maybe you have, but to see if we can't, this is to Tom and the city manager, to see if we can't solidify this with maybe a change of plan.
Are you familiar with the ongoing process now, Mr. Lynn, of how we're doing it?
Am I? Yes.
Are we doing it correctly?
Well, I'm kind of familiar with it. And my short answer is probably not.
Okay, thank you. And if we don't comply with the law, what's the?
You'll end up back in water court.
Okay. Thank you.
You'll end up back in water court. Deans will be representing us.
Something that Ernst, when I was talking to him the other day, at the coffee shop, he said the cost, and I had no idea that it could be so much. He said it could be as much as $7,000 an acre.
Could be.
To revegetate.
Could be.
You aware of that, Tom? It's a lot of money.
Okay, Tom, you have a comment, please?
Yeah, just wanted to write on the back of that that's part of what I was gonna come up. We discussed that last month, is how expensive revegetation can be. The expertise, of course, is warranted, sometimes needed. We are backstopped by a lot of people. Are we progressing at a pace that would satisfy everybody? No. When we first purchased the farms, we had given our word that there would be a 10-year window that we wouldn't even begin the process to try to help satisfy the farmers and the ditch that are already out there. Are we outside of that window? Yes. We've already had one review by the water court, and they're satisfied with the progress that we've made. We'll have another review in 5 more years from the water court. It's a review every 6 years that they look at the progress that you've done, ensure you're in compliance with your decree, and we progress from there. last meeting, I had stated how we're trying to work with local farmers, those that are some of the tenants, to continue the progress that we have made, but understanding the concerns, rightfully so, of where we're currently at. We've also began since then researching other RFPs that have been done by other agencies to find some of these experts. We're going to learn from the process that they did, and working with our purchase department, we're slowly putting together an RFP so that we can reach out to some of those and have them give us exactly what their costs are and what it would take for them to work with us. Since a lot of this was unbudgeted work for this year, we're mostly wanting to use it as information so that as we get towards the budget portion for next year, here in just a few months, then we will have that, and that's when we can have a greater discussion, is if following with one of those professional organizations that do that, if that's the direction we need to go, or continue where we're at, or drop back and punt and find a third solution to where we're at and how to get where we want to be.
Thank you. And I guess I need to state here, none of this concern on our part was to malign or infer that people aren't doing their best, but we just, it's a big issue.
Yes, sir.
And you said you're a 5-year review time, so that's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a huge issue, especially when you start to get word there's, Colorado Springs Utilities, they have their nose up everybody's business down all throughout the valley. They're searching for water resources for their community, just like La Junta is doing that for us. So we need to ensure that we're managing our portfolio the best we can so that we don't get, contrary to what any others are doing, and to ensure that there's still the appropriate amount of resources, not only for municipalities from up the Front Range to us down to Lamar, but also for all of our partners in agriculture. The Arkansas Valley is a heavily over-allocated water basin, so there is a lot of caution that always needs to be taken at every turn you take. We always listen to the concerns the board has. Sometimes we can't pivot or move as fast as we might like to. I say pivot. We have a quote out right now to find out how much water pivots would cost, so that we don't have to have our distribution crew out there to, change gates, lay pipe, etc., to help keep established the grass we have and to, continue on the fields where we're at. But time and money, two things always in short supply.
And resources.
And resources, yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, so any other comments? We're belaboring this maybe, but.
So you mentioned pivot, and you've said that before.
Yes, sir.
By driving through Rocky Ford and seeing how they did some of that, they don't use, they being the Aurora guys, and some of these guys that planted, farmers that planted some alfalfa, they were using for lack of a better term, the giant golf course sprinklers on a
Big
spool.
impact sprinklers.
They drag it out, they go up to a tractor and pump it. It pulls itself in. It's
Yes.
more of a temporary, but keeps it wet. And I know they were using those systems. There was a pile of them sitting out alongside the highway near Rocky Ford.
Yeah, those are fantastic options. One thing that we need to keep in mind is the Holbrook is a very junior canal. And for example, last year they only had 96 hours worth of water run to them. So finding the best method to utilize that resource to ensure it gets on the ground, that's a big challenge, because it takes a lot to get all the natural grasses established. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but like when we were going up and touring a lot of the farms that Pueblo now owns up by Salida, they talk about the various 3 phases that you're generally going through, which is your initial planting, then your caretaking, and you're trying to get it up to where the grasses are generational and can take care of themselves. And depending upon the water resources you have, let it be through irrigation to get them there, or if we're lucky and we get wet years like we had last year, that process can take 3, 5, 7 years or longer. And it's a process that overall patience is one of the things that is needed. And I understand how the utilization of that water as a resource for augmentation gets to be a priority when you couple in conduit talk and a lot of the operations we have, because that's a resource that we would own, but it just takes a long time.
Okay, any other concerns, questions? All right, thanks, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Then another point that came up is trying to build accrue a fund. We had the $17 charge for repayment of the bonds for the water treatment plan. We retained that, but we're concerned and maybe interested to make sure that that goes to accruing a fund balance used for capital improvements. No one's really addressed that to us, so we just like to make sure that that happens as well. Any other comments about that?
No.
No. So if someone could address that, that would be fine now or later. It's fine.
Yeah. I got my notes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or concerns? All right, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.
No.
Nope, excuse me.
Do you want to go through?
I
that
do. I thought you said
briefly?
after the meeting, so.
It can be, or we're
That's
short
per-
of time here. and
Yeah, we are.
So I'll try to rush through it if we
Okay.
want to do it here.
Okay,
And I don't see any need necessarily to do it in executive session,
okay.
unless you guys want to do it in executive session.
Tell them what you're talking about, just so.
Most of you already heard it. It's mostly for the benefit of new members and to refresh your memory. It's liability issues with regard to elected board officials. That's you guys.
I would like to opt out.
You know it by memory, right?
I just
Well,
got
you
it.
can just- You can just check me to see if I got it all. I think it's generic enough that we can do it here.
Okay.
And let's just get it done with. Is that all right?
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, let me start out by saying that this is a very unique board, and it is created by charter, and the rules that apply to this board are by charter, not by me, or by the interpretation, or my willingness to want to create rules for you, and that is very cumbersome, and I'll tell you it's very difficult, and the reason I start off with this is because of what you have been discussing today. The charter limits your responsibilities to a determination of rates, period. Not oversight of management, not oversight of the various funds. Now, some of that's been ceded to you, CEDED, ceded to you by what the council has done historically, which is refer all these matters to the various boards to get their opinions, such as the library board, get their opinion of what to do with regard to library things. But this board has very limited authority to do anything. So by example, and I'm not focusing in on this, and incidentally, I don't do divorces, traffic tickets, or whatever else was listed on that sheet that you circulated out. But there are specialists for water attorneys, but the issue of who, what, where, how much it costs, are at a different level than, those things are being decided at a different level than you. So you may recommend, and I encourage that you recommend, if you're unhappy with the water attorney that has been hired by the city, and if that's the opinion of the board as a group, there's no reason that you can't express that opinion as a group to the council and let the council do with it as they will. You've already done that in other circumstances, such as your position with regard to the conduit, but recognizing that it's not your decision to make, it's ultimately the council's decision. So I think that as we walk this fine line of what you as this board can do and not do, I encourage you all to read the charter again, take a look at the very limited responsibilities, appreciate that your opinion is valued, but isn't necessarily mandated. So by example, if there's something that you want to see happen, whether it's a hiring of a water attorney or otherwise, make your thoughts known to the council, and then the council can act or not, but it becomes a dead issue at some point. And it's really not an issue that you can control, that particular issue. So, the second part of what I share with you is that to some extent, you're a policy-making board, but a little bit junior to the council. So in terms of policy-making, I think the council really does look to you for guidance on policies. And where that line starts and stops is just almost impossible to draw. Is it a policy issue to say, go hire a different attorney? I doubt it. Is it a policy issue to say, let's create a separate fund for the management of money? I think that's probably different. So I think these issues, I don't know where that line is. But it does take a working relationship between the council and this board working together, but also understanding the limits of what you can do. They're not limited, you are. So please read. Was that my same dial tone?
That's your wrap it up.
Time's up.
Okay, no, I'm far from it. Okay, every elected official should be concerned about liability issues. And liability issues are, to some extent, protected by law and to some extent not protected. By illustration, a bad decision that's made by an elected official that is done in good faith, we have insurance coverage and statutory coverage to protect you. But a bad decision that is made irrespective of what is known to be the right way to do business or the right way to make decisions may become reckless. And if it's reckless, then you may not be protected by our insurance carrier or by the law. When there's lawsuits that occur, and this utility board, everybody on it at one point, some years back, was sued. And you're sued as individuals as well as the board. So then it becomes a question of, did any of you act inappropriately that the insurance coverage won't cover? And that's always an issue. If the city of La Junta gets sued, all the council members will get sued. So what we try to do is ensure that you understand your responsibilities and understand how you avoid throwing yourself into the pit and becoming personally liable for things that you stuck your nose into or stuck your nose out of, that you have some responsibility to act for. Most of that at this level means that you are educated as to the issues and that you are educated as to the limits of your authority. By example, and I don't care who hears this, but it's important. Let's just say one of the elected officials doesn't get the message that that elected official, can constantly interact with supervisors, where the charter specifically says the supervisors answer only to the city manager, who answers only to the council. But we've got an elected official that keeps sticking his or her nose into somebody's business, giving them instructions and so forth. That creates a hostile work environment. And that means that the city has a responsibility to that employee to protect that employee. But if somebody doesn't get the message and somebody thinks they can continue to stick their nose in business and that employee's had enough, well, it's a matter of huge liability to the city. And if it's you that's involved, that's a type of an intentional offense that may lead to you being personally liable as well as the city. So you need to read the charter and understand that the city manager is the guy that is supposed to interact with all the employees, supervisors or otherwise. And what the city manager, the last city manager said, is I don't have a problem with you contacting city supervisors if you limit it to contacting city supervisors about general kinds of issues. But instructions or pushing, assigning tasks, raising hell, those things are ultra vires, which means that our insurance coverage won't protect you. Now, what the next city manager is going to do, well, I think we're just going to have to wait and see how they want to run their city. But it's clear the charter says there should be a stone wall between you and city employees and city supervisors. And your interference is gross negligence, maybe reckless negligence, and I can tell you our carrier is gonna walk away from it and tell you you're on your own, go hire an attorney. The same thing holds true with two other areas that elected officials get in trouble with. The first one is open sessions, very difficult. For those of you that don't know, the open session law says that when there's 3 elected officials dealing with any kind of public issue, that's a violation unless Melanie has sent out a notice. Period, stop, end of message. Now, the law says that you can have a social event. We can all go to a Christmas party and we can talk about Santa Claus, but the minute we start talking about sewer and water or electricity, we have violated open sessions. And it's everyone's responsibility not to be involved in that. You've got to extract yourself from it, even if it doesn't feel good. So it's a responsibility under the law. It says it's your personal responsibility to see that you don't participate in that. You just need to walk away. One of the hot issues statewide, and it is so clear as to be clear, but nobody believes it, blogs are a violation of open sessions when it's being used by elected officials. You may not like that rule, but it's clear. Now, when are you violating the rule? When you are acting as an elected official and acting as a private citizen. Again, those lines are not well drawn, but the benefit of the doubt will not be given to you. So what does that mean? It means that if there's any discussion of city business on a blog, or whatever they call them. Public forum.
Okay.
You have no ability to control whether this elected official and that elected official are watching or reacting to it. So, easy answer, don't do it. And then we don't have to worry about it. Same goes true with regard to communication. Some people don't believe this, but trust me, I can send a communication to all the elected officials. That's not a violation of open session because I am not an elected official. Melanie can do the same, Rick can do the same, Bill can do the same. You guys can't. Period, stop, end of message. So sometimes there's a message that's sent out that says, we're gonna have a meeting, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and somebody replies to all in answering that. That's probably not a violation because there's no policy decisions being made, but it might be under certain circumstances. So don't push reply to all in answering that stuff. Just avoid social media as much as you can. The other thing that will get you in trouble, can't say this enough, is conflicts of interest. It is your responsibility to declare it. It is not my responsibility or the chair's responsibility to stop it. But as a matter of practice, we try to stop it because the ramifications are very serious and on a personal basis. So a person's willingness to violate a conflict of interest statute is reckless disregard, and our insurance company will not help you. So if I see it coming down the road, I'm going to try to stop it. If it's not coming down the road that I can see, it's still your responsibility to recognize it and to declare it. And if you don't, well, okay, whatever happens, happens. To declare it, all you have to do is say to the forum, I have a potential conflict, never admit it, I have a potential conflict of interest, excuse yourself from the room and excuse yourself from all discussion. What constitutes a conflict of interest? Any financial interest, direct or indirect, between you and your family and the issue that's before the public. So if you've got an indirect financial interest, that's just as bad as if you're directly involved. So by illustration, let's say that DeBoard Manufacturing is asking for some sort of economic incentive, and that means a reclassification of your utilities that you're using into some different reclassification which will have an economic impact. Whew. Conflict. You're out of here. You need to declare it, you need to avoid it, and so forth. And that happens with every elected official. Does it involve Bill Jackson or Phil Maliff or Rick Klein or Betty McFarland. No, it involves elected officials doing their job. Don't like to get crossways with people about conflicts of interest, but it is singularly probably the biggest place that you can stub your toe. And remember, it's direct or indirect and financial. Things to remember. Executive sessions, we always deal with that. There's a change in the law in executive sessions. I'm going as fast as I can. Now, if you want to go into executive session, you have to not only read the script, but the guy that says I want to go into executive session has to state in a general sense what it's about. So by example, if we go into executive session and we want to talk about a contract between Edward D. Jones and the mayor for some reason, that motion to go into executive session has to say it's about Edward D. Jones, so that the public knows in a general sense what's going on. Mr. Mayor, how'd I do?
Good.
12 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, adjourn.
I have a question. That does not prohibit board members from exchanging emails between each other about
No.
business.
Not
Okay,
long as it's
that's not a public
two or
forum.
less.
So
If you sent an email to you and to Mike and to Joe and to Paul, that's a violation. But you could send one to Paul
okay,
and a different email to Joe.
it has to be different. Can't be 5 emails that are the same.
That
page.
is correct.
Okay, so very clear about
And
that.
phone calls too.
Individual email.
Phone call,
You can-
same
You
way.
can pick up the phone and call anybody and talk with them, but you can't have a conference call.
Yeah, and it's substantively different or just change the verbiage?
Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. You're not gonna get the benefit of the doubt in
All right.
violating the rules.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Meeting is adjourned.
The guy at sunglasses.